Welcome back, and the next story about the mysterious relationship between Iron Man and Gamora. The laboratory was flooded with the cold blue light characteristic of the arc reactor. Tony Stark had not slept for 36 hours, his usually sharp brown eyes now etched with tired blood streaks. In front of him, the quantum teleportation machine, the fruit of a 5-year-long obsession, was spinning swirling vortexes of energy. Gamora sat on a steel table a few meters away, her long legs dangling, the Godslayer sword resting across her knees. She did not belong here, did not belong to this timeline. A survivor, a variant, a stray piece from the infinite war. Her green skin under the LED light looked like a living marble statue, cold and full of mystery. "You should rest," Gamora spoke, her tone deep and resonant like a bronze bell. "The human brain is not designed to function continuously like that." Tony chuckled softly, his fingers still gliding over the holographic control panel. "Are you worried about me, Destroyer? I just do not want this machine to explode and kill us both," Gamora replied, but the corner of her lips subtly relaxed. It was the closest thing to a smile Tony had seen from her in all these months. They had been together long enough to create their own rhythm, a strange dance of two lonely souls. Tony Stark, genius billionaire, who once had everything, then lost everything, now only had Morgan, Pepper, and the burden of a universe once saved. Gamora, the most ruthless warrior in the galaxy, who died at the hands of her own adoptive father, only to be resurrected as a copy with no past, no love, not even Peter Quill. The relationship between them, if it could be called a relationship, was an enigma without a solution. Not love, not ordinary friendship. It was a bone-deep understanding of the scars that others could not see. During the long nights in the laboratory, Tony often talked about New York, about the space portal that changed him forever. Gamora talked about Titan, about the orange sky and the fields that were once home. They exchanged fragments of their souls like antique collectors, careful and full of appreciation. But it was also during those nights, when fatigue and loneliness took over, that a darker thought crept into their minds. A question never uttered. What would happen if that boundary were crossed? Tony never allowed himself to answer, neither did Gamora. But unanswered questions did not mean they did not exist. They quietly took root, waiting for the moment when one was at their weakest to rise up. And that moment came right when the quantum machine reached critical energy threshold. A bolt of purple energy lightning suddenly shot out from the reactor core, the residual energy from the Mind Stone that Tony had studied for years. At the same time, a chain reaction triggered a neural impulse from Gamora's own mind, where the memory of the Soul Stone, the thing that killed her in another reality, still smoldered. The two energy sources collided, creating a silent explosion. No fire, no smoke, just an invisible wave sweeping through the room, and suddenly, Tony and Gamora felt as if someone had just pulled all the air out of their lungs. The world around them blurred like a watercolor painting caught in the rain. When their vision returned, they were no longer in the laboratory. They were floating in a void, where fragments of their own memories drifted like broken mirrors. And before them, two entities were taking shape. The first entity appeared as a dance of light. Strands of brilliant gold and blue energy intertwined, forming the silhouettes of two figures holding hands. It had no face, but radiated a warmth that made the heart ache. It was the afternoon Tony taught Gamora how to brew coffee, her rare laughter when he told a terrible joke, the moments they shared in silence, watching the artificial sunrise at the Avengers compound. It was the mysterious relationship, the pure bond both had woven without even realizing it. The second entity, in contrast, rose from the darkness, a jet-black Iron Man armor, cold, with glowing red lines like demonic veins. But this was not Tony. In the arms of that armor was another Gamora, not the warrior in the familiar white armor, but a version clad in a tight black leather suit, her eyes glowing yellow, full of provocation and temptation. She coiled around the armor like a serpent, her lips parted, whispering deadly sweet words. This was Iron Man through the night, the embodiment of every suppressed carnal desire, every momentary weakness they had never dared to admit. "You have summoned us." Both entities spoke in unison, but their voices were the voices of Tony and Gamora themselves. "Now witness the battle. The victor shall determine the true nature of this bond." Tony and Gamora were frozen in place as spectators, unable to intervene, only able to watch as the two entities began to charge at each other. Its strands of light shot out, weaving a scene. The small kitchen in the old Avengers compound, where Tony was fumbling with an unnecessarily complicated coffee machine, and Gamora stood leaning against the wall, arms crossed, observing with an inscrutable expression. Across the entire galaxy, I have never seen anyone build a machine just to make a beverage so complicated, the Gamora in the memory said. It is art, destroyer, the Tony in the memory replied, turning back with that familiar half-smile. That scene shot toward Iron Man through the night, like a bullet of warmth, but the dark entity only laughed loudly, a sound that echoed, distorted like crushed metal. Friendship, understanding, those things are just a facade. It swung its arm, and a wave of dense black energy swept through, dissolving the memory like shattered glass. A man and a woman, lonely, wounded, together for months. Do you think the only thing they want is idle chatter? The black armor moved, and the seductive version of Gamora in its arms slithered out, stepping with soft strides to stand before the real Tony and Gamora. She leaned down, her scorching breath whispering into their ears. Tony, do you remember the dream last night? When your hand touched my skin, when you wondered what this green color would feel like? Do not deny it, I am your thoughts. Then she turned to the real Gamora. And you, Gamora, you watched Tony when he took off the armor. You wondered how vulnerable the man who once saved the entire universe would be in bed. You wanted to conquer him, to prove that you are not invisible. The real Tony and Gamora trembled. They could not deny it. Those thoughts did exist. Fleeting, trivial, but real. They were the products of sleepless nights, of hormones and loneliness, things that no superhero could completely control. Sensing the wavering of its two masters, Iron Man through the night grew even stronger. It attacked relentlessly, firing blades of shadow shaped like wet dreams, accidental touches stretched out in memory. The mysterious relationship strained to resist. Its golden strands wove an image of Tony standing as a shield before Gamora in an ambush, not out of duty, but because he could not bear the thought of her being hurt. An image of Gamora patiently listening to Tony talk about his fear of being a father, about Morgan, with an absolute focus she had never given anyone else. This is the truth. The mysterious relationship roared. Respect, sacrifice, the belief that another soul understands you without needing to possess. But the darkness was not easily defeated. Iron Man through the night swung its armored arm fiercely, and the seductive Gamora version lunged into the fray. She fought not with strength, but with deadly allure. Her every movement was an invitation. Her every glance was a poisoned arrow. She embraced the strands of light, whispering sweet lies into them, and the light began to dim. The battle gradually turned into a brutal play. The mysterious relationship was pushed into a defensive stance, its light weakening steadily. Iron Man through the night laughed thunderously, its metallic voice tearing through space. I am nature. I am instinct. That noble sentiment of yours is just denial. You cannot win. At that moment, the real Tony Stark, though bound, raised his voice. His voice was hoarse, yet strangely clear. You are wrong. Everything stopped. Both entities turned toward him. You are a part of me, Tony said, looking directly at the black armor. The dreams, the thoughts, they are real. I do not deny them. But you are not everything. You are just the noise, the undercurrent of a soul that has grown too weary. As for Gamora, he turned to her, his gaze unexpectedly tender. She is a friend, a teammate, someone who saw Tony Stark and not Iron Man. And that, you dark thing, is infinitely more important. Gamora also spoke then, her voice trembling but full of resolve. I was once a weapon. I was controlled, betrayed. I thought of using my body as a tool to take revenge on life. But then Tony came, and he demanded nothing. He just was there, talked to me like a person, showed me a respect I had never had. That is what saved me, not meaningless physical touches. The moment those words were spoken, both Tony and Gamora reached out toward each other. In the real world, they were just two people standing in a laboratory. But in this space of consciousness, they made a choice together. They did not deny the existence of Iron Man through the night, but they also did not let it define their relationship. The mysterious relationship received strength from that choice. It blazed back to life, but did not attack. Instead, it opened its arms and stepped toward its enemy. I understand you, it said to Iron Man through the night. You are also a part of them. You were born from pain, from the weakness of the flesh. You do not deserve to be destroyed. And then, the mysterious relationship embraced Iron Man through the night. It was not an attack. It was an embrace of forgiveness. The darkness screamed, thrashing. The black armor cracked and shattered. The seductive version of Gamora dissolved into dust. But instead of being annihilated, those fragments of darkness were gently enveloped by the golden strands of light. Absorbed, a silent explosion took place. When the light faded, Before Tony and Gamora stood only a single entity. It was no longer entwined strands, nor was it the black armor. It was an amber flame, burning silently and warmly. It had no fixed shape, but radiated a feeling of balance and completeness that was strangely profound. The flame flew toward them, split into two, and merged back into each of their chests. Tony and Gamora opened their eyes. They were still in the laboratory. The quantum machine had shut down sometime earlier. There was no explosion, no purple light. Everything looked exactly as it had before the accident occurred. Only the clock on the wall had ticked forward by 1 hour. The two of them silently looked at each other. No words were needed. They both knew the other remembered everything. The dreams, the secret thoughts, the battle just fought, all of it was as clear as day. But the miracle was, there was no shame at all. Gamora did not turn her face away. Tony did not crack a joke to gloss over it. They just sat there, sharing a silent space, yet brimming with a deeper understanding than ever before. Finally, Tony was the one who spoke first. "Hey, Destroyer. Turns out we are more complicated than quantum mechanics." Gamora smiled softly, a real smile, no longer just a relaxation of the muscles at the corner of her lips. "You are right, Stark, but I think this is okay." She stood up, picking up the Godslayer sword. Before stepping out of the room, she paused, turning her head to look at Tony. In the warrior's golden eyes, Tony saw a glimmer of warmth that had once only flickered faintly, now become a brilliant amber flame. "Thank you," Gamora said, "for not turning me into a dream," and then she left, leaving Tony alone among the clutter of devices. He watched her figure disappear behind the door, a tired but contented smile spreading on his lips. "You are welcome," he whispered into the empty air. "And thank you for not turning me into a lonely man." The battle between the mysterious relationship and Iron Man through the night had ended, but there was no absolute winner. The darkness was not destroyed. It was understood and embraced. The light was no longer fragile. It became strong because it dared to accept even the imperfect fragments. The true winner was not a concept, but Tony Stark and Gamora themselves. They won by choosing to respect each other, by daring to face their own darkness without denying it or surrendering to it. The relationship between them remained a mystery, and perhaps would forever be so. But it was a beautiful mystery, tempered by fire, and now eternally unbreakable, because it was built from the most genuine fragments of two souls, and bonded by the strongest glue in the universe. What do you think? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so very much.